All right, as they say, friends, foes, and Formula One fans, lend me your ears and eyes for the next hour or so. The incident is not over. Okay, who will go where in 2022? Why is this, or potentially is this, the most important race for Max Verstappen in his career so far? What is wrong with Mick Schumacher's car? The F1 PitBox at the Baron returns this coming weekend. And don't back against Lewis Hamilton this coming Sunday. We'll tell you why. Welcome to the F1 PitBox. This is the F1 PitBox with Sasha Martinengo and Gary Formato. It's a very good evening. Thanks very much for joining us. I know it is a bit peculiar to have it on a Wednesday night, but we do have a whole lot of other things that have to be done tomorrow. But maybe Gary and I will do something after we find out what the FIA are going to say about the incident. Anyway, a chance of rain, 30% to 80% chance all of a sudden. And the last race before the summer break, and F1 is buzzing about Silverstone. How's it going, Gary? It's unbelievable how the chat is still about everything at Silverstone.
Yeah, of course, it was always going to be that. And, we said at the time, it's great for Formula One. It's certainly piqued everybody's interests. And but look, apart from that, I think, let's see what happens tomorrow. I'm quite interested to see how that one pans out. We had our views and opinions straight after the race, you and I together on the show. But let's see what happens tomorrow.
Very much so. Now, I was trying to go back, Gary, and think about when the FIA have ever overturned rulings or given more serious penalties in incidents. And there's a couple that have come up. I remember distinctly in 1999, Ferrari and the barge boards. You remember that? At the Malaysian Grand Prix. And Irvine won. It was the return of Michael Schumacher, and they had those strange barge boards, and they were disqualified. Ferrari appealed and got the FIA Sporting Commission to overrule it. So that's one of the incidents. Can you think of any others?
I can't off the top of my head right now think of any others, but I think it's got to be said that the only way to appeal this thing or to put forward a petition to have it re-looked at would be on the basis of them having new evidence to add to the story, and also the fact that Max Verstappen wasn't able to give his version of events at the Grand Prix on Sunday because he was in hospital. So that's why I'm sort of interested to see what they say tomorrow, just what comes out of the meeting.
Yeah, very, very good point about Max Verstappen not giving his side. Helmut Marko has come out and has said that it'll give a slightly different angle in terms of what they're going to show to the FIA tomorrow, which is quite interesting. So just to let you know how it works, the FIA Sporting Code permits a right to review if a significant and relevant new element is discovered which was unavailable to the party seeking the review at the time of the decision concerned. So one point there is definitely Max Verstappen's opinion on it. If Red Bull do not meet that criteria, and it is unknown at this time what they intend to present, the request will be rejected. Should the stewards feel it meets the criteria, the investigation will be reopened. That does not guarantee anything, because earlier this year, Gary, you remember Kimi Räikkönen at Imola was given a 30-second time penalty for a pit lane infringement. I can't remember exactly what it was. Sauber Alfa Romeo appealed it, but nothing came of it for Alfa Romeo. So it is sometimes worth challenging the FIA Sporting Code, but it doesn't necessarily mean you are going to you might get them to open up a further investigation, but it might not change the end result.
Correct. I mean, in all likelihood, the result, unless this evidence that they have is really substantial, in all likelihood, the penalty's been given, and life sort of moved on from there. As tougher and as hard a blow as it was for Red Bull, that's more than likely going to be the case. However, we don't know what evidence they've got, so let's see. I mean, I'm hearing things that Hamilton never went as fast through there for the rest of the Grand Prix, etc., etc. Who knows what the story is? But that's why I'm fascinated to understand what this meeting is about tomorrow. Because what is this other evidence that they've got?
I agree. I think it is going to be quite good. You know what? I actually do remember one, Gary. I think it was back in 1994. Eddie Irvine created a crash at a Grand Prix, and he took out Brundle, Jos Verstappen himself, and somebody else, and was given a one-race ban. Yeah. He was with the Jordan team, and they appealed it, and they actually got a 3-race ban. That's what I remember.
That's right. It went the other way. Correct.
Yeah. So sometimes you've got to be careful on that as well. Listen, if you didn't see what Gary and I we did a video about it. It is on the race day and the F1 Sasha page as well. You can go and look at our points of view as well. We had such tremendous comments about it, which is great because, Gary, it's our opinion and everybody's entitled to opinion. You don't have to agree with our opinion, but we're giving across our opinion, and we will gladly read your opinion as well. You've got the Max lovers and the Max haters, and the Lewis lovers and the Lewis haters. That's the nature of any kind of sport. And it actually was great to see everybody getting so emotional about this incident because it is critical to the championship.
Yes. I mean, listen, it's been a long time since we've had a world title fight where this sort of eruption has taken place. Now, I'll probably think back to sort of the Schumacher era and with Villeneuve, et cetera, where these things, even a Prost Senna, I'll say more like a Prost Senna type situation, actually. Except you've got drivers, different cars and different teams. It really is quite a heated battle. And, at the end of the day, we're still talking about Prost and Senna because of what it was during that time. And, this is something, a world championship fight that we'll probably talk about for many years because of what it is. This is really, it's really good stuff. And this is why we're going to sit down and watch the Grand Prix this Sunday. I mean, it's actually riveting.
Oh, no, I think it's just fantastic. Listen, lots of people getting in touch. Mohammed, Zakir, Rian. Just want to say hello to everybody. Diane, Colin, Vaughan, Johan, Nikki, always there. Rian, Eitan, Mohammed saying as well. Lawrence, Colin also saying hello. Rian, Chris Jordan, Nikki. Lewis got the same penalty as Kimi. Okay, so there we go. Garth McKenzie, Ham the man. Okay, nice to hear you, Garth. And also, while we just sort of delving on that, Gary, the one thing we haven't spoken about, we're not really going to speak about it too much, it will be at the Monza Grand Prix, was the sprint race, which happened on the Saturday. I think it was okay, in my personal opinion. I think it was okay. Silverstone is a very, very difficult track to overtake on. So I do believe Monza most probably gives it a little bit more of a chance to throw up a couple of curveballs.
Yeah, listen, I did enjoy it. I think it was certainly something different, no doubt about it. But Monza definitely a track. You've got low downforce settings, as we know. Some more opportunity to overtake down those long straights with the DRS, etc., etc. So let's give it another go. I don't think it was a total loss at all, and I think it certainly added a lot to the weekend. So looking forward to seeing what happens in Monza with it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Also, put Perez in a very, very bad position for Red Bull. So it does throw different curveballs. Now, the other thing, Lewis Hamilton, and Gary, you and I have been saying this for a year. When is he ever going to start his own charity or do something? And he does do quite a bit behind the scenes, but he has officially launched his charity, and he's pledging £20 million of his own money to launch a new charity supporting diversity. And you go and read up all about it, and you come across people who just immediately sit there and go, oh, this is just nonsense because it's only going towards those people who are underprivileged or haven't had opportunities before. But that's the whole point, Gary. That's what he's trying to do. He's trying to get the diversity. He's trying to get more people interested in the world of motorsport who perhaps haven't had that chance and now are excited about it because of people like him.
Yeah, correct. I mean, I think I take my hat off to him for actually putting this initiative together. So let's see what it throws out in the future. But exactly, that is the point, to give people that wouldn't normally have the opportunity, an opportunity to get involved. And like we've always said, there's probably many other Max Verstappens and Lewis Hamiltons around the world that would never have ever, are never going to get a chance. Maybe this offers those people an opportunity. So, good things come out of these things. And like, as I said, I mean, hats off to Hamilton, and it's good to see him doing what he's doing.
Yeah, exactly. Also, a couple more. Elaine from Somerset West. Hello. John says, I'd like to think that Leclerc might have an opinion. Leclerc did have an opinion. He basically sat there and he said, you know what, they touched each other. I basically would have done the same, but we don't know if that's just the talk of someone who's told what to say. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for Leclerc because he got passed by Hamilton at the end. But do yourself a favor, go and watch the video of Gary and I talking about the incident. Tomorrow, Formula One, together with the team managers from both Red Bull as well as Mercedes and 2 other members of their team, will go and sit with the FIA and get a sporting code. I do not believe we will get a conclusion tomorrow, and this might play itself out over the course of the summer break, which reminds me, Gary, 1976, Hunt versus Lauda. You remember, James Hunt got disqualified at the British Grand Prix because his wheels were the car was too wide. And it took them all the way up until, I think, like 30 days. It took a month before all of a sudden they withdrew the decision. They reinstated Hunt with the points, and he went on to win the championship. So there have been a lot of different issues over the years regarding these things. Now, moving on, Mick Schumacher, Gary, has been complaining that there's something wrong with the seat in his car. And the great news is that this weekend it's going to be fixed. However, how funny is this? There's nothing wrong with the seat, Gary. It's Mick Schumacher himself. He is not symmetrical, apparently. So they have to now build a crooked seat for him. How bizarre is that? Have you ever experienced anything like that?
I don't know. I didn't, it sounds unusual. But having said that, and you talk about being racing a seat in Formula One is as critical as, say, a runner having the best pair of shoes that are fitted for them exactly, or a cyclist that goes and has himself fitted accordingly on the bicycle, where everything is just done perfectly. The reality is, if you cannot drive these cars, or any racing car for that matter, like a single seater or something to that effect, where your seat's uncomfortable. It really does hamper you. So it's an interesting story that's come out, and I'm surprised it's taken half the season for them to work that one out. That's the big thing, because you would have thought that would have happened pre-season during the seat fitting process. But having said that, whatever it is what it is. And you can expect him to go a lot better if that seat, in fact, is made for him and fits him like it should.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's a critical part. I mean, it's most probably the most important part for a driver. So let's see this weekend, because for the first time this year, Mazepin actually was quicker than Schumacher and drove a better race at Silverstone. So that's quite interesting. Great to hear from my friend and my family, Hanno Grimm, who is, well, you don't really have to know, but he's part of my family. And he's in Hungary, lives in Hungary, and he says, looks like thunderstorms on Sunday as the heat wave dies off on Saturday. It's scorching weather in Hungary, Gary. And I must tell you, it's just such a magic place. The last time I was in Hungary, they have this place, and Hanno, if you're listening, you can tell me what it is. These huge pools where you go in and you pay, and it's just like these massive pools in the middle of Budapest, and you just go and chill out in the pools. And believe you me, that's where you want to be this weekend if you are in Hungary. Okay, now let's move away just a little bit from Formula One. Also this weekend is a magnificent race, and that is the Spa 24-hour. And in 24 hours, Gary, in Spa, anything can happen weather-wise. So these guys are in for an unbelievable treat. And the wonderful thing for us, we've got 5 South Africans taking part at the 24-hour of Spa.
Yeah, it's great. We're well represented over there. I mean, look, Calvin coming off a strong weekend in DTM. We've got Sheldon in there as well. We've got David Perrell and little Stewie White. I think I'm happy to see that he's in the field, and of course Jordan Pepper. So I think all the guys, can certainly have the ability. They've all shown they can win in various sort of classes and what it is in GT racing over there. And let's hope they can, between all of them, let's hope somebody can bring home the bacon.
Yeah, geez, go for it, guys, and good luck. It was great to watch them in the DTM. In the first race on Saturday, I mean, the Van der Linde brothers on first and second was just magic to watch. And then Calvin had a definite win in the second race on Sunday, and unfortunately his Audi cut out and then came back to life, and but eventually finished third. So the boys are really, really showing the caliber and the class of racing that comes out of South Africa, and well done to them.
Yeah, exactly. Well done to them. And I think also just showing that it doesn't matter where you come from or what the story is. If you really want to do something, just get out there and work hard, and you can do it. So I think certainly acting as an inspiration for all the young motorsports people that are racing in this country.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So good luck to those guys. Now, some trivia. And then coming up, we will start looking at Lewis Hamilton and Hungary, Max, Ferrari versus McLaren, as well as the driver market. But here's a brilliant, brilliant question. And Gary, I don't even think you would remember this. I don't think, you know what? Both our parents won't remember this either. However, it is in the history of and the annals of Formula One. In 1935, at the German Grand Prix, Adolf Hitler was so convinced that the Mercedes or an Auto Union was going to win the race that he forgot something. So here's a two-part question. What did Adolf Hitler forget at the 1935 German Grand Prix? And the second part of the question, who won the race? Okay. It's a fabulous question, and we'll give you the answer in a short while. Okay, there we go. It's a fabulous question, and there's a great story behind it as well, Gary. Coming up, we'll talk about Lewis Hamilton and why you shouldn't back against him this coming weekend. Welcome back. Isn't it amazing? You don't have to have advert breaks and people have to watch promos and that kind of stuff, Gary. It just has enough time to sip your beer. It's wonderful.
That's the thing. And you know where you are there, so I'm not even going to bother because it might have just caught me out.
Okay. Lewis Hamilton and Hungary, Gary. It's just a match made in heaven. We've got a whole bunch of slides that we're going to put up here. But Lewis, after coming off a strong victory in the UK, that's all you got to say. He drove like a demon in that second stint. He had to go out there and chase Charles Leclerc down. Yes, he was in a much faster car, but you still got to go and do the stuff. Now you come to Hungary, beaming with confidence. He's got a car that underneath him that looks very good. And he has won there, I think, 8 times already.
Yeah, listen, he's been fantastic there. And then look at the car, the team being great over there. But listen, there's going to be different factors at play here this weekend. I think he's going to have a much more hard time of it. But yes, history sort of tells us that they've been good there. And he's had some great races there as well, Hamilton. I mean, I can't remember what year it was exactly when he drove through. He's really had some fantastic races. So let's see. I don't think he had an angry Max Verstappen anywhere near him on those occasions. But we'll see this weekend.
I love that. Let's just bring up some of those slides. Here we go. Most podiums, 9 podiums, together with Kimi Räikkönen. Räikkönen has been there a slightly longer time than Lewis Hamilton. Let's go on to our next slide, just to give you this kind of domination. Most laps led in Hungary. I mean, 480, and his closest is not even at 300. So, I mean, that just tells you that he loves this place, and he's pretty good at it as well.
Yeah, certainly so. And I mean, most of the drivers enjoy the track. In fact, it's a great little circuit. And it's a little circuit. I mean, it's a really nice circuit. But I think everybody just enjoys it. It's a bit difficult to overtake, Sasha. So we all know that. We have seen good racing here before, but it can be difficult. So qualifying is going to be critical, as always. But here, certainly so. So Saturday afternoon is where everybody needs to really get it right.
Very, very much so. Okay, that's looking at Lewis Hamilton. Don't back against him. Most polls as well, 7. Vettel's got 3. So, don't back against Lewis Hamilton this coming weekend. And most wins, 8. The next best, Michael Schumacher with 4 and Ayrton Senna with 3. So Hungary has been very, very good to Lewis Hamilton. And that moves us on perfectly, Gary, to how critical this Grand Prix is for Max Verstappen. There's a couple of points I want to bring up. The first one, Gary, you know what it's like when you've got a race car and week in and week out, you go to the track. Of course, the tracks are different, and the tar is different. The tires, that compounds or whatever, might be slightly different. But Gary, just tell us how difficult it is to get a car dialed in. Okay, in the sense of when you're driving it in your practice sessions and you're getting it right, and you go, okay, the next circuit we go to, very similar, I shouldn't have too much of a problem. It's the tiny little bits that count, isn't it?
It is certainly the tiny little bits that count. I mean, the really tiny little bits that count, especially at this level now. And, you know, to get its car dialed in, well, is it ever really dialed in? That's the thing. It's always a compromise at the end of the day. It's just, you know, find out where it works better. It's never right. Yeah, you know, to get a new car, and you would expect the Formula One car to be very similar, but you know, you don't know. Sometimes you've heard of drivers replacing chassis for whatever reason. You just, unfortunately, it's not really something that you'd want to be dealing with at this point in time.
Now, this is the next conundrum that Max Verstappen and Red Bull have. Severe damage to his car. So they've had to rebuild it. Okay. Now, Gary, those little tweaks, he's won 4 out of the last 6 races. He has this huge crash. The car has to be completely rebuilt. Those little turns on the front right, that slight brake adjustment, all of those things, he's basically got 3 hours to try and get that car up to the kind of perfection that he had prior to the crash in Silverstone. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, it's going to be, as I said, something that you probably, if you could choose, didn't want to deal with. But, you know, let's be honest, these cars are rebuilt all the time and checked out and what have you. So I would expect that you're going to get something pretty similar. But you have a valid point in the sense that it's not what he had before. It was working so well up until now. In fact, this is the first Grand Prix. He hasn't finished this year, in fact. So I think it's something also you, as a driver, got to put a little bit to the back of your mind and just go out there and drive. And if it's not 100% the same, it's only 99.9% the same, well, so what? I think just get on with it and get out there. But I mean, this is Formula One. We all know what goes into it and how those teams run, how the manufacturing side of it works, etc., etc. You would think that it's going to be okay. And I really hope it is, because we want to see this championship fight taking place in front of our eyes.
Yeah, very, very much so. Sean brings up a great question here as well. What happens if Max's engine is replaced? Does he start from the back of the grid with the new rules? Great question, Sean. No, he doesn't. Honda and Red Bull are going to go out on free practice with the engine from Silverstone. Okay, they don't believe there's been significant damage to it. Little bit of a caveat to Red Bull. Ferrari did that at Monaco with Charles Leclerc, and look what happened there. So be careful. The only time, Sean, that a penalty will be incurred is if they change the engine after free practice 3, actually after qualifying. So he does have carte blanche to actually go with a brand new engine or an engine that they have used before, Sean. But they don't specifically want to do that because they are limited to the 3 engines for the whole season, Gary. So, you know, you've got to try and get as much out of that engine as possible.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's probably why you see Christian Horner and the team really agitated about what happened. Probably seeing the fact that it was probably unnecessary for them to have had such a big crash, but that Horner was going to do that. We spoke about that. But you know, this engine situation and the rules, it's not something that I've always, you know, been fond of. But, you know, in this case, they've got to try and stretch everything as long as they can and keep everything fresh for that end of the season tussle that's going to definitely take place, or it certainly looks like it's going to be taking place.
Yeah, and also, you know, you've got to look in, there's the whole budget cap thing as well. You know, there's been amounts bandied about, £1.3 million, $750,000, whatever it's going to cost, it's going to come out of their budget. So even big teams like Red Bull, in terms of what they are known for, everyone is got the same amount of money to spend. Yeah. So those small little crashes, you know, knocking a front wing, that comes out of that budget. So, it also, I think that also would irritate a little bit of Christian Horner.
Yeah.
Because he's been moaning a lot. Oh man, I cannot wait for this coming Sunday. It is really going to be something very special. Gary, also staying with Max Verstappen from a psychological point of view, and I know he's come out and he's got that confidence and that arrogance, and I think you need to have that when you're 23 years old, racing in this kind of category against people like Lewis Hamilton. Lewis has been here down this road many times. Max might have been in it in smaller formulas. The world is watching, Gary. Psychologically, maybe the younger the better.
It's difficult because we don't know what's going through Max's mind. But my sort of assumption or my bet would be that he's going to arrive there and be exactly the same Max Verstappen as we saw arriving in Silverstone or any other Grand Prix that he's been to. Yes, fighting for a championship it's like, once you've won one, they seem to be an easier thing to achieve. Okay, Formula One doesn't always happen like that, but that sort of confidence level. But the fact of the matter is, he's won Grand Prix, he's run a string of Grand Prix this year. I would have to assume that his confidence is where it needs to be. Again, I don't want to delve into too much about what happened in the last Grand Prix, but I think the team was sort of sat down and said, look, we are in a championship fight. We're going to have to look at the championship and not the race. It's all good and well say, well, we want to go win every race. But at the end of the day, Alain Prost won 4 world championships by thinking about it. And I think you've got to try and take the good elements from all the champions and put them together and learn from history in the sport and say, okay, how am I going to win this championship now?
Yeah, 100%. And it does also bring up the question, just final point on the incident, was Max even thinking about, listen, if Lewis comes next to me or whatever, let him go, secure the points, and instead of losing 25, I'll only lose 8, for example. I sat there and have thought about this at quite length, and I went, we're only halfway through a season. There's 25 points on offer. It's not like the days when it was a 9-6-3 or 10-8 point system. So I don't buy into the fact of go and preserve the points right now. They didn't expect the incident to happen, but we said it was going to happen, and it's most probably going to happen again.
And to your point, I mean, there's 21 Grand Prix or whatever it is, to finish every Grand Prix and have the race on our hands that we have with them. There was always going to be something. It was about who cracked first at the end of the day. So it was like it was a game of chicken, I think, more than anything else. So let's see what happens this weekend. I mean, it's I can't wait to watch this weekend. I think it's going to be so exciting.
Especially if some rain comes along as well. Okay, There we go. That is Max Verstappen. That question again, in 1935 German Grand Prix, Hitler forgot something. He expected the Mercedes and the Auto Union cars to win. What did he forget, and who won the race? We'll give you the answer in a short while. Looking back, Gary, the Monaco Grand Prix, Charles Leclerc in qualifying, phenomenal. Brilliant. Unfortunately, he had that big crash, and we all know what happened then. For many, many years, Hungary has always been described as Monaco with a couple of straights. Sometimes that analogy works, sometimes it doesn't. But Ferrari looked very good around Monaco and surprisingly pretty efficient around Silverstone. You've got to believe they're going to be up there in the mix this weekend.
You have to believe so, Sasha. I totally agree with you. Look, and also coming off Silverstone wasn't a bad Grand Prix. Look, they were slow. Their pace wasn't what Hamilton's was during the race. But, at the end of the day, the team is certainly on the up. And Monaco was great for them. Both drivers were quick in Monaco. And listen, it could even get more interesting up at the front there. And if they are able to put the car on the front row of the grid again or something like that, it adds a whole new element to the Max Lewis fights.
Yeah. No, listen, I agree with you. Now, the thing is also, what about McLaren? Because you've got to believe that this fight between McLaren and Ferrari is getting pretty tense. Lando Norris is doing a phenomenal job. Ricciardo seems to be clawing his way back. And on the Ferrari stable, I mean, there's very little between Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc. So, I mean, this battle, you know, would be lovely if it was right in the front, but it's still great to see two of the most respected teams in Formula One really racing against each other.
Yeah, I think it's great to see them, and I think for me, what's great about it is that Ferrari had a terrible year last year. They've sort of not got themselves back into the mix. And McLaren, I mean, yes, it's been a couple of years now where they've really been on the up and what have you, but they really came from a dark place. And to see them up here now fighting for the positions they are, and Lando being on the front, I think it's really a testament to everybody in that team and the management that have actually managed to turn things around, you know, because these things sometimes never happen in Formula One, and they have managed to do that. So it's great to see them where they are. Yeah,
it is wonderful. I think we're in for a really, really strong battle between Ferrari and McLaren. Nikki is a big Lando fan. Nice to hear. Rika says, "Oh, Ferrari is ready for this race." Rika, well, let's wait and see this weekend. The driver market, Gary. Perhaps not expecting any announcements this weekend, but after this weekend, we've got a 4-week summer break for the teams, and you've got to believe the lawyers, sports agents, team managers are not going to have much of a holiday because they're going to be in negotiation. Is Kimi Räikkönen the pivot around this whole driver market?
It could well be, because if he does vacate that seat, and of course that opens up opportunities for a lot of other people as well. You know, it could, have a Bottas that I know, for example, Alfa are keen on Bottas. He could slot into that seat. If Russell goes to Mercedes, who goes to Williams? There's a lot that could be happening around this Alfa Romeo seat.
Which is quite amazing. I mean, Giovinazzi, you got to believe, is doing a pretty decent job. There's rumor that Mick Schumacher, who of course is a Ferrari driver, could go and take the seat at Alfa Romeo. Now, does he take Giovinazzi's seat or does he take Raikkonen's seat? And you mentioned Valtteri Bottas. Alfa Romeo would love a driver like Valtteri Bottas. We know he's super, super quick. And maybe he could get a little bit more out of the car than the likes of Raikkonen and Giovinazzi. Is Giovinazzi doing enough?
You know, you spend so much time and money developing the guy. He does seem to be doing a lot. I mean, but Raikkonen, as we know, isn't it? You know, at the end of his career, there's no secret about that. Gee whiz, you know, it's a tough one. You know, I look at it like this: if you're gonna impress, you're gonna do what Lewis Hamilton did to Fernando Alonso in his first corner in his first Grand Prix. That's 100%. The way I see it. If you're one of those guys, that's how it works. And it's taken Giovinazzi quite a long time. And I'm not taking anything away from him, and he's doing quick right now. But then if you're a team that's looking at your long term, saying, okay, we've got Raikkonen, he's at the end of it. You know, there's no use keeping on plowing away with Raikkonen. It just makes sense to get somebody else in there to develop them or to do it. If there's a Bottas available who's been part of a world championship winning team, you almost can't miss it. You've got to put him in the car. I'm sure you'd be able to learn so much from a driver that's got that kind of experience. So I think you've got to think long term now. And I don't think him is a long term prospect.
Yeah, and I'll be honest. I think Giovinazzi's on very, very thin ice. He's out-qualified Kimi, but he hasn't out-raced Kimi, and that's also a bit of a problem. So that's maybe Alfa Romeo. So Alfa Romeo could have Valtteri Bottas, it could have Mick Schumacher. It could have Valtteri Bottas, it could have Callum Eilert. We have to wait and see. Then you've got Mercedes. If Bottas goes, you want, you've got to believe George Russell is going to be there. If you're Lewis Hamilton, do you want George Russell as your teammate?
Well, again, it's also a long-term play because, yes, Hamilton is not as old as Kimi, but and still very fast and able to win plenty of world championships if they present themselves to him. But you've got to also play the long game. And I think a guy like Russell, I think Mercedes would be crazy not to have him in the car because who's going to be your Lewis Hamilton replacement? And you could have Russell wasting many good years learning about Formula One at that level. And to get going. So I would, if it was me, I'd certainly have him in the car,
Then you've got, Gary, you got Williams. So all of a sudden, George Russell is out of Williams. Nicholas Latifi comes with a lot of money, and I think his father is a part shareholder but they are owned differently now. Sorry, I don't think he's a part shareholder because there is a new management team. Latifi hasn't crowned himself in any form of glory. Williams next year, you've got to believe, with the rule change, with the budget caps, could well be fighting. They do have the expertise. They could well be fighting. Now you've got names like Bottas to Williams, Nick de Vries, Stoffel van Duren returning to Formula One, Danny Kvyat. There's so many. Nico Hulkenberg's name has also been mentioned of a return to Formula One. So you've got to believe that both seats at Williams are up for grabs.
Yeah, you have to believe that. I just don't know what the size of Latifi's check is. That's going to be a determining factor there. If it's a big check, the team's going to certainly look for a good reason to keep him there. He's up against Russell, which is always going to be hard for anybody, I think. So I don't think doing a totally bad job. That's for sure. But yes, that seat's certainly become a lot more desirable in the last couple of races than it would have been, say, last year. You know.
Agreed. And then, of course, you've got just looking at some of the other teams. I think the other teams are pretty certified for next year. The one name that is not mentioned out of all of these, sadly, in a way, Alex Albon.
Yeah, but Sasha, to be honest with you, again, and I'm going to stick my neck out. He didn't shape, unfortunately, against Max in Formula One. Look at him in DTM right now. I mean, his teammates giving him a go. Our guys are giving him a go. I just don't think it's going to work out like that.
Yeah, there we go. Johan says, let's hope Maldonado doesn't come back. Listen, you can say what you want about Pastor Maldonado. He beat Fernando Alonso and won the Spanish Grand Prix. Come on, the Hulk. The Hulk hasn't even got a podium. So we'll just leave it at that. So it's all about Kimi Räikkönen. And I think also, very importantly, what has come out is Alfa Romeo, Sauber have come out once they renewed with Alfa Romeo for the foreseeable future, basically come out saying they have carte blanche on their drivers, Gary. So prior to that, I think it was Kimi, retire when you want to. I think now they sit and say, hold on, we've got to look at the long term. So this could well be the last season we see of Kimi Räikkönen.
Yeah, it definitely could be.
Let's get back to our trivia. Toy got it correct. Well done, sir. I'm just trying to see if anybody else got it correct, but there's so many messages over here. If you did get it correct, well done. It's such a great question. 1935, Gary, German Grand Prix. Adolf Hitler is there. The auto unions, the Mercedes, he believes are going to win this race. And there was something that he forgot. Wow. He forgot that number one, it was Alfa Romeo, just over here. Number two, possibly one of the greatest racing drivers ever in the history of the sport, Tazio Nuvolari. Okay.
Yeah.
Tazio Nuvolari went on and won the race. And how cool is this? He traveled to the German, there's a picture of the car. I mean, look how old that car is. He traveled to the German Grand Prix and he had a record, a vinyl of the Italian national anthem. So they played it for him. What a beautiful story. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. That is the answer. Well done if you got it correct. Tazio Nuvolari, 1935. Adolf Hitler forgot to have the Italian national anthem. Nuvolari brought his own. All right, coming up, we shall look towards this weekend, look at the Hungarian circuit, also the times you can watch, and we'll tell you about the F1 PitBox, which will be at the Baron. Don't go anywhere.
This is Formula One.
The Hungarian Grand Prix, Budapest. I've been lucky enough, Gary, to go there twice in my life. And Budapest, one of the most just spectacular places you could ever go to. And the circuit itself is just so people-friendly. The fans are like nothing I'd seen prior, besides maybe in Italy. And I think the Dutch are going to be there in their thousands as well. But the fans are so knowledgeable. They're so respectful in Hungary. And, this was the first ever Grand Prix that took place behind the Iron Curtain back in those days. And it's been on the calendar every single year. It's a magic place.
Yeah, since I think it was 1986 or something that their first Grand Prix. there.
Unbelievable.
But, yeah, as I said earlier, nice little track. We've seen some fantastic races there, some upsets, some surprises. Let's hope that we have just a fantastic race this weekend. But yes, qualifying is a premium, as we said just now. It's quite, like we always say in racing, the reality is you don't really know what's going to come out of this thing this weekend. You don't really know,
Especially when we'll talk about the weather in a short while, but let's just look at the circuit as well. Gary, it only has the one DRS zone. And I suppose that is where it does limit itself in terms of overtaking. And that's why I agree with you. Qualifying is critical. We're on the C2, the C3, and the C4, which are the harder of the compounds. And temperature-wise, Gary, we're up in the mid-30s up until Sunday, if the rain comes. And even if the rain comes, we're still up in the 30-degree air temperature, which means that track surface is going to be well over 60, 65 degrees. So tire performance is, I don't think it's going to be as critical as something like Silverstone, but it could play a factor.
Listen, it's always going to play a factor, just more or less of a factor in terms of the degradation and the durability of the tires. And, who's managed to get that, as you talked about it earlier, that dialing in the car. Who's been able to get the tires to work well without overcooking them, and for how long you're going to get each compound to work for according to your race strategy. So that's the kind of thing, that they're going to be sort of working on. And it is a difficult one, because if we know it's going to rain on Sunday for sure, it throws your entire sort of weekend out. Although the balance of the car and what have you would normally stay the same. But then, of course, the tire strategy, etc., goes out the window. So, you've just got to march to what the conditions are on the circuit at the time, in the session, in the race, and do the best you can.
It's such critical information that Gary has just said there. We've seen many times, and not only in Formula One, but in other categories of racing as well. You've got to drive to what the track is doing at that moment. And all of a sudden, if there's spits of rain, you drive to it until you cannot drive anymore. Or if you're out in the rain, you stay out, Gary, for as long as possible. You don't now all of a sudden say, oh, well, it's raining, let me come in. You stay there so you can understand what the car is going to do in those conditions.
Yeah, exactly. It's always about the conditions that you have at the time. So it's piping hot or whether it's rain, you drive, in my opinion, to the conditions at that particular time. To take gambles and try and do things, we don't really see that anymore. So everything's too optimal right now. So yes, when you have a driver that goes in slightly early on a slick tire or whatever, or wet tire, you can judge for a lap. You've got enough time in a lap to make the call because you can see all the sectors on the track, etc. So listen, Jenson Button won his first Grand Prix, I think, in a wet, dry race in Hungary. That was certainly something different for us. So let's see, maybe this weekend we have some more of that. But it's really going to, everything's sort of like building up into this real championship fight now. The weather, the tracks, the teams, the drivers, everything is just working well.
And their teammates. This, we know that Bottas on any track is going to be right up there with Lewis 95% of the time. This is critical for Checo Perez. Never mind Max hopefully getting his car up and running. But this race is crucial for Sergio Perez.
I think you hit the nail square on the head with that one. And it's up to the Red Bull team as well to get Perez up there. They've got to, yes, he's been good in over the year. In bringing their car home in the points and what have you. But Silverstone was a disaster for the sprint race. He lost the car in the sprint race, didn't work for him. But it is critical that both the Red Bull drivers, or not say both, Max, we know Max is going to be there, but Perez has got to be in that fight. They've got to get Perez to beat Hamilton. As hard as that's going to be, that would be the ideal scenario.
Yeah, I agree. I love the fact that metaphorically, I always hit the nail on the head, because in reality, if you want to see me with a hammer and a nail, not a pretty sight. Now, this weekend, the weather. Hanno has told us already, who lives in Hungary, has told us that thunderstorms are expected after the massive heat wave. This is the latest that we have got from the weather services. Sunday, still 31 degrees, but all of a sudden there's an 80% chance of rain. On Saturday, there is a chance of rain, but not nearly as high. So these things, of course, change all of the time. I mean, you know, I promise you, yesterday I looked at it, it was 30%. Now all of a sudden it's 80%. So we wait and see. Either way, whatever weather it throws up, the guys are going to have to deal with it. And it just adds spice for us, Gary.
Yeah, exactly. And it is what it is. I'm happy to accept it however it rocks up. And if you're a driver or a team, you just, as I said, you go with what you got.
Now we go to regular TV times as a normal Grand Prix compared to the British Grand Prix because of the sprint race. And I mean, I was going crazy trying to wait till 4 o'clock in the afternoon for first free practice. But TV times on Sunday for the weekend, there we go, 11:30 to 12:30 first free practice, then 3 until 4. Then on Saturday, 12 until 1, practice 3, qualifying from 3 until 4, and the race is at 3 o'clock. These are all South African time. So if you're watching from abroad, please check your schedule. You can check it at f1.com. They will give you your time or track time as well. So these are all South African times. 3 o'clock is the race this coming Sunday. The great news is that we're allowed to have alcohol again, and it means that the restaurants are all open as well, Gary. And I must say, I've missed having fun, especially in a season like this where it is just so close, getting together with people. And we all are very aware of COVID. So please, it is not taken lightly. All COVID protocols have to be adhered to at the restaurant. But this coming Sunday, the Baron Witkoppen in 4 ways is on like a scone, together with Tom's and Arnold Chat's cars and the Baron. And Gary, you're going to be there as well, which I'm so excited about.
Yeah, I'm going to be there for sure this Sunday. So, I'm also excited about it. It's nice to get out and about a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great fun as well. I know a lot of people have already booked tables as well. All of the details are on my social media, how to book tables. Please do so, because there are also restricted and limited in numbers of how many people they can have in the restaurant. But I think it's just going to be great, you know, Gary, just to chat with other people about the season. We're going to have the Mercedes fans, we're going to have the Max fans, we're going to have the Ferrari fans, the McLaren fans, and everyone seems to be performing so well from all of the teams. There is somebody that you can speak about, and it's just wonderful to get into that conversation with people in the flesh.
Yeah, exactly, and not like this over Zoom. Yeah,
over Zoom, exactly. So do yourself a favor, if you are in the Gauteng, Johannesburg area, get hold of the Baron 4 ways, book yourself a table for this coming Sunday. Come and join us. Gary and I will start round about 2 o'clock. So make sure that you are there before 2 p.m. We'll talk it up to just before the national anthems, round about 2:45, and then, of course, we'll watch the race together. I think that's it, Gary. I think the excitement is all there from what we've seen throughout this whole season, together with the incident at Silverstone. Even if that incident hadn't happened, we're on the knife edge. This is a proper championship between 2 drivers from different teams.
Yeah, absolutely. We couldn't have asked for better right now. And let's see where it all goes. It's Hamilton, as you said, you know, in terms of what he's done in world championships, he's got under his belt. Certainly, from an experience point of view, he's the guy. But Max Verstappen wants his first one, and there's everybody racing with different sort of outlooks and what have you. And what is for sure is nobody's going to want to give an inch. So I don't expect any sort of different approach from either Hamilton or Max Verstappen this weekend.
Yeah, I agree. Chris Jordan says heatwave 31 degrees. Chris, let me tell you, I've been to Budapest. 31 degrees feels like about 40 degrees on the Highveld, and it feels about like 36 degrees on the coast. It's proper hot in Hungary. It is going to be amazing. As always, we have our obligatory Alfa Romeo picture for the show, which is this beautiful Alfa Giulia. There we go. And they've just released the Giulia GTA and the GTA M. Gary, I don't know if you know that my birthday's passed, but you know, I am still I'm still accepting gifts. That's it. As they say in Hungarian, I hope I get this well right. Kulje el. Send it. Gary, I will see you on Sunday, this coming Sunday at the Baron. Otherwise, maybe we'll have a chat tomorrow, all depending on the outcome of what happens with the Sporting Commission.
Looking forward to that one.
Okay, there we go. From Fritz, Henk, Gary, myself, thank you very much for watching. Please share on your platform so everybody else can watch it as well. Thanks for all of the engagements as well. We'll go through some of the comments and I will reply to them. Have yourself an enjoyable Wednesday night. It's still 2 days before free practice. And we will see you again soon. Let's go racing!